Good day to members of the media and the listening public. I stand here today to provide you an update on the government's Economic Investment Certificate Program. It is with great pleasure that I announce that in the 8 months since the launch of the initiative on March 1st, 2021, the total investment of EIC holders in Bermuda is over $39.5 million, which includes $14.3 million, which will have been injected into the country this year. This is a significant and positive result, and we have not reached the 1-year mark yet. This represents 8 certificates being issued, covering a total of 20 persons, including dependents, since the program's inception. There is an active and growing pipeline of over 20 persons who are currently registered their interest in the program. The total investment of the EIC pipeline are around $200 million. EIC recipients are required to invest a minimum of $2.5 million into the Bermudian economy. This level of investment and the potential investment in the pipeline speaks to the high level of confidence that affluent individuals in our island have in this government. It is common knowledge that affluent individuals worldwide seek to live in places that meet specific criteria. They often seek safety, stability, sophisticated, connected places with a temperate climate and a well-regulated business environment. These individuals and their families have the means to make significant financial investments, develop business, and create job opportunities, which can benefit Bermudians. Bermuda must take advantage of these opportunities. The policy objectives is to fully harness immigration as one of many tools for creating economic growth for Bermuda while taking into account our limited space and ensuring that Bermudians fully benefit. To that end, I announced the launch of the Economic Investment Certificate in February this year. The EIC was designed to stimulate economic activity, create the environment for job creation, and help market Bermuda as a place to reside and do business. Economic Investment Certificate holders who seek to reside in Bermuda indefinitely may apply for the residential certificate after 5 years. It is important to highlight that the applicants for a residential certificate must possess an economic investment certificate to be eligible for residence in Bermuda. If successful, a residential certificate is granted, giving the holder, their spouse, and dependents the right to reside in Bermuda for an indefinite period of time. The holder is also granted approval upon application to work in a business in which they have invested, if that is the basis of the EIC application. If the spouse or dependent of a resident certificate holder desires to work in Bermuda, they will be subject to the work permit policy. Qualifying investments are possible in Bermuda in one or more of the following ways: purchase of real estate, residential or commercial, invest in the development and launch of a new business invest in the development of launch of a new business, purchase Bermuda government bonds, contribute to Bermuda Sinking Fund, contribute to the newly established Bermuda Trust Fund, donate to a Bermuda registered charity, make a direct or indirect equity investment in an existing Bermuda-based businesses, excluding exempt undertakings, and invest in such other social or useful ventures that benefit Bermuda as may be determined by the Minister. Full information about the EIC certificate, including policy, frequently asked questions, and expression of interest form, may be found on the Bermuda Business Development Agency website. Non-Bermudians should also note that the EIC is not the only program that allows individuals to reside in Bermuda. Those who meet the eligibility requirements may apply for permission to reside on an annual basis. While referred to as permission to reside on an annual basis, permission may be obtained for periods up to 5 years. This program is perfect for globally retired individuals, dependents of work permit holders, and hotel and tourist accommodation earners. Anyone interested in residing in Bermuda for a year or more should complete the application form for residence on the Bermuda government website. The Ministry of Labor remains committed to establishing effective policies that will foster the expansion of jobs and economic growth. The Economic Investment Certificate is directly aligned with Bermuda's Economic Recovery Plan. Through our National Economic Recovery Plan, the government will take decisive action to restore consumer and business confidence and stimulate our economy, creating a clear path to growth and employment. In closing, I would like to note that on December 2nd, I will be speaking more about the Economic Investment Certificate on the Bermuda Engle webinar series. I welcome local stakeholders to tune in to learn more about the EIC and its benefits. The webinar can be accessed via the Bermuda Business Development Agency's YouTube page. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. At this time, we welcome questions from the media.
Hi, good morning, Minister. Jasmine Patterson, Bermuda Broadcasting. You mentioned that the EIC is translated to about $200 million in investment. Do you have an estimate of how many jobs have come out of that?
90% of the investment is associated with purchasing of real estate. There are currently investors speaking with the Business Development Agency regarding investment into business ventures. And so I cannot quantify the amount of jobs that will be created in the future, but I would say that I'm confident that you will see a greater variety of investment moving forward.
Are you able to share what are the areas of investment? You mentioned real estate. Was there anything else?
Yeah,
any other areas?
90% of the investment currently is in real estate.
Okay. And the other 10%?
Investment into business.
Okay. Thank you. I guess the next question, what assurances can you give that a potential residential certificate will graduate into citizenship? If
there is no link between residential certificates and obtaining Bermuda status.
Okay. And will that ever be considered in future?
At this point in time, there is no intention or consideration being given to transforming residential certificate holders into individuals that possess Bermuda status.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Hello, Minister. Sean Connolly from the Royal Gazette. What would be the optimum resident population of the island in the government's view?
We've had discussions with the Ministry of Finance as to what we believe that magic population number would be. We haven't landed on an optimal population number, but certainly we would like to see both the employment, the number of persons employed increase, as well as the number of persons in our population that can sustain those employment levels. And so we will look at a correlation between what level of residential population will be required to have a desired number of jobs in the economy, and look at what is actually sustainable at that level.
What do you think that number would be? About 80,000, do you think?
So as I articulated, we haven't quite landed on what that number would actually be. Some work needs to be done in terms of econometrics to determine what would be the ballpark number that we were looking at from a country standpoint.
If you don't have the number, doesn't that suggest a lack of strategic planning?
I think you can move in the right direction without having an absolute. And so even if I gave you that number, it would be an estimate, but certainly expansion of the residential population is an aim of our economic recovery plan, and moving in that direction is always positive.
Would you be in favour of giving guest workers, work permit holders, voting rights?
Certainly, voting rights are attached to Bermuda status. Bermuda status is a very restricted category in our economy, and it will remain restricted based off the size of our community. And as a result, we've provided avenues for work permit holders to become long-term residents through the PRC process.
Do you not think this two-tier system puts people off coming here, though, and investing here and working here?
I believe that what you will see is there is still a desire for people to live, work, and reside in Bermuda without the ability to vote in elections.
Okay, on a different subject, as Bermuda's an overseas territory of the UK, do you accept that Bermuda has to abide by the UK's international obligations and contracts, etc., treaties?
I believe if you look at Bermuda's constitution, Bermuda as an overseas territory has its own constitutional rights. To what extent we're bound to commitments that the UK engage in varies based off of a number of factors. And so it's not universal that everything that the United Kingdom accepts automatically has to be implemented in Bermuda.
On a subject like cannabis, the Premier cited Canada as an example of being able to go your own way, but obviously Canada is an independent sovereign nation, whereas Bermuda is a overseas territory of the UK. Do you think it's credible, acceptable, legal for Bermuda to go its own way on cannabis without the UK giving a green light?
I believe that question will be better answered by the Attorney General, who is actually leading the initiatives as it pertains to cannabis reform.
But I'm asking you as a member of Cabinet for your opinion.
I can't say it any different than I previously stated, that the best person to ask that question to is the Attorney General, who will give you a more comprehensive answer than I am able to provide on that particular topic area.
Could you define in a sentence why residents here can't become citizens after a certain amount of time?
Residents can become citizens, and we've just passed legislation that would enable long-term residents to become citizens.
It seems quite difficult, though, the process, and you were saying earlier about, the differences. So could you not make the process smoother and more linear?
I believe in my last press conference I spoke to how we're going to digitize the process, but I want you to be clear with the terminology. As citizens, you do know that as an overseas territory, technically persons are not Bermuda citizens, the Bermuda overseas territory citizens.
Yeah.
And that can also happen through a naturalization process, which is something separate from Bermuda status as well.
Okay, but what about voting rights, though, and moving towards that?
Our Constitution protects voting rights to only those who possess Bermuda status. And unless there is a constitutional amendment, unfortunately, those rights cannot be extended to other persons within the population.
Okay, personally, finally, would you like to see a change in that status then, a constitutional change?
As part of our immigration reform initiatives, we will look at the law in its entirety to ensure that it's fair and just, and one that identifies clear objectives and pathways as to how one becomes a permanent resident certificate holder, as to how one possesses Bermuda status, as to how one has rights to live and reside in Bermuda.
Personally, you'd be more minded, though, to extend voting rights, would you?
Me personally, I think that our Constitution makes it abundantly clear, and unless there is a constitutional change, I don't believe that we're in a position now to extend voting rights to persons that do not possess Bermudian status.
Yeah, but what I'm asking you is, like, would you personally like to see a change in that situation where voting rights...
Mr. Colony, I believe the minister has answered that question in multiple ways,
Capable of speaking for himself.
and he has already, sir. Do you have anything
Would
further?
you personally want that? You know, the extension...
Mr. Colony, do you have anything further? The minister has answered that question on multiple occasions,
Well,
in
I
various
think
forms.
The minister can answer for himself, I'm sure. Would you like to answer, Minister?
So repeat the question.
Would you personally like to see the extension of voting rights to people who aren't in that category at the moment, who live here and work here and contribute to the society?
Personally, I support the position where persons that possess Bermuda status are the only persons that have the ability to vote in Bermuda's elections.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That is the final question for this press conference. Thank you all for attending, and have a great day.